Hey, there you go. There you go. Possibly.
Are they the Tom Cruise sunglasses, or did you refer to something else?
No, I think they're probably about right. Did you have mirrored ones once? I'm not sure.
We haven't been, perfect. We made a lot of mistakes. We're going to have our 30th anniversary in a few weeks.
And that's a mistake?
Did we think that NetApp 27 years later was going to be a massive part of Proact business? We didn't. Every technology partnership, you need commitment, you need to take it to market, you need to train your techies, so there it's a lot of work.
It's really more about understanding your business, understanding your processes, and then making use of the tools that really help you, making the best out of that, and not just focusing on solution XYZ.
The basis for the entire public cloud and everything in it is basically hypervisors on x86 processors. The ability to virtualize your workloads and split up physical computers into several small virtual instances and make them movable and transferable and dynamic has pretty much formed the basis and foundation for everything we're seeing today.
Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Data. Proact are going to be 30 years old at the end of September. So we're quite honoured today to have a gentleman with us who was there on day one of Proact's birth. He's currently our VP of Technology and Services. And he's a founder member, which makes him sound like you're in sort of 1970s rock band, I think, to be honest. I think maybe long hair, that sort of stuff.
Or he's pictured and carved into stone at Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, exactly. That's
the founding father.
A 1970s rock band sound, way more interesting than the 90s IT company. But, still, we are here after 30 years. I guess we've done something right. The years, haven't we?
So I'll introduce. So essentially, Per Sedin is with us today. So 30 years at one company. That's quite impressive. Did you leave school and start with Proact, or did you have other jobs beforehand?
Well, as you can see, just looking at me, it was probably preschool more or less. But no,
you're only 35, surely.
And a bit. No, it's I had a few companies, worked with a few companies before, and I think the last two ones before Proact, then I started to slide into data. I was in industry automation working for Philips. That was my first job ever.
Oh, right.
And making concrete was one of the applications, which is as fancy and interesting as it sounds. But it was automation of whole factories. But I kind of started sliding into storage and data, where there was something called exabyte. Massively 2.3 gigabyte tape station came out in the early 90s. So I started to slide into data and data management, and the same team in Sweden and in Norway, and for that sake also initially in Denmark. We're kind of there a couple of iterations before Proact, so that's really how it happened. And then, as some of you might know, the American company, I won't mention any names, but they're called Storage Tech, and they don't exist anymore. They've been purchased and purchased again. They said what we were doing, data management and storage, that's where we started. Still important, not all we do, but still very important.
Yep.
In the Unix space, this was before Linux. I'm that old. That was really weird because they were into mainframes, and so they said, whatever you're doing with Unix, the dinky toys stuff, you can get out of here. So that's how we got started. So we have this idea around storage, data management, perhaps more importantly, try to be good at something, focus on a few things and try to be really good and have technical skills and bring some type of value to our customers. And we got going in 3 weeks, and here we are 30 years later my surprise, I guess.
Yeah, that is quite impressive, isn't
and
it?
I'm
really?
still here, maybe even more surprising. So no, I like it. I like the people, I like the customers, I like what we do, absolutely. And then it's always changing, I guess.
Yeah, I've worked with you for a number of years anyway, and you're very much focused on the technical side of things. That is you still enjoy the technology, don't you? That's your bag.
I'm to be honest, and with you guys, I'm not as on it or as sharp or as detailed as I used to be, but I still love technology and I love the new stuff and also what can it be used for, and seeing through the hype and the overselling that always comes with something new, and see, is there some true value? There isn't always, but there is. Can you find some true value in whatever technical wave? They always seem to be like, overhyped, and it's going to solve everything in the world and a bit more. And people realized, oof, it was maybe not that great, or we have to do some work and do our homework and really try to understand it. And you get a little bit disappointed, and then things start to happen. So yes, I've seen a few shifts, like the .com, which eventually became this really big, strong internet companies, but that failed in the late 90s or early 2000s. Everything is going to be, business going to be done on the internet. And it was a massive hype, and everything deflated in the early 2000s. But out of that came, of course, what we see today.
Exactly.
So it's kind of fascinating to see the ebbs and flows of technology. And I think with technology, sometimes it goes in circles as well a little bit. So things come back. And so it is interesting to navigate. And over the years, of course, more and more colleagues like you guys, which have much deeper technical skills than I have. So we can start being as skilled and as focused, but in more areas than we used to be in the beginning of Proact. So that's quite fascinating.
It's interesting in the fact that, we talked about it in the past briefly. The mainframe culture, to all intents and purposes, was reawakened by VMware, because VMware, to all intents and purposes, is another structure of a mainframe type of.
Yeah.
It's taking everything and putting it into one very large box rather than separating it out into individual computers, which is what Windows decided to do.
Same goes for hypervisors as well. No, hyperscalers as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So you can look at Azure as a mainframe. You can look at AWS as a mainframe. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
A number of years ago, some guy from IBM said that it would be a worldwide requirement or a need for 5 supercomputers, and that was it. And he kind of had a good point, because how many of the big hyperscalers do we have? It's about 5, right? So he wasn't totally wrong.
It's not a million miles away.
It's a different iteration, but it's the same thing again.
Yeah, but
just quicker and more.
Do you think we're going to get to 5, or do you think that laws, compliance, how the world is looking right now, might say it's not going to be that consolidated, because the risk, technical, political, whatever, are maybe too big for that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so as well. It's going to get more segregated than it is today, basically because the requirements for national kind of control and governance, or sovereign cloud thoughts and things like that, are going to start peeling away from the massive hyperscalers. I'm pretty sure of that. Not every workload, but a bunch of it will be moved out. So we'll end up with yet another model of hybrid cloud, which is basically on-prem, hyperscaler, and kind of national clouds or sovereign clouds as well. And then we're going to split that up again and go back to kind of client-server terminology again. That's the next kind of phase.
The circle or the pendulum of everyone.
Yes.
It's like a 10-year cycle, isn't it? It's like everything's going to the cloud, everything's coming back from the cloud, everything's going to the cloud, everything's coming back from the cloud. Once every 10 years.
Pretty much.
It's a bit bonkers.
But that also kind of, if we're going to get back to talking about ourselves and Proact, that kind of, that's interesting as well. If we've been doing this for 30 years, I've only been here for 8.5 of those, but yeah, we've been through this cycle a few times.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
we're still here.
But I think that's, and is that pair more down to, well, obviously we partner fairly heavily with NetApp, and we do a lot of managed services. Is that down to our choice? Would you say that our longevity is down to our choice of partners and our choice of direction with regard to how we deliver the business, or is it more down to how we look after our customers and the people that we employ, that sort of thing?
I mean, when you think back, I think you need a bit of luck and a bit of timing. I do think we picked a good area to be in, peripherals, as it was called back then, which really was, data and storage management. backup and more. And with the amount of data growing, the explosion we've seen over the last several decades, and the technical development and for hard drives and flash drives and all of that one. So I think we picked a good area. I also think we picked some good partnerships, but you have to understand, after the first 3 years, we had replaced all the technology partnerships we had when we started. So by 97, everything was replaced that we started with in 94.
Oh, right, okay.
So then I guess we and perhaps the market matured a bit, and we started scaling the business because you can't keep changing all the time. But I think if you talk about partners, the partnership part, perhaps. I mean, do you have a good partnership? The big ones, NetApp is one of them. You really need to be into the partnership. You need to understand their priorities. They need to understand our priorities. You're aligned. And sometimes you diverge and you don't agree technically or business-wise. That has also happened. But no, I think it really comes down to skills and people and focus on customers, because a lot of the ideas we have around, I mean, NetApp and the file server we had before NetApp was called Proacts. Rest in peace, they're not around anymore, they've been long gone. Was really driven from close collaborations with some customers. So we had customers like Ericsson saying, Proact, they liked us, they knew us. What do you think about this alternative to Auspex, which is called NetApp? And we were like, that's pretty cool. Then they already had partners, and there was a lot of conflict because the management and the founders of NetApp came from Auspex. So you couldn't really have both at the same time. So we had to balance that partnership because Auspex was like 70% of our business the first couple of years. So, but I think it really comes down to partnership, a long-term partnership with some vendors, technology partners, and equally, probably more important, I mean, we have customers we had before Proact. They're still our customers.
Oh, true.
So we've done something right over the years, I think, to deserve that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And it must be what we do as a business on that basis, because I expect the account managers have changed and the other personalities have changed in that period of time, and yet the customers are still with Proact as a business, which is quite impressive.
Some of the technical people and support people and pre-sales, maybe not.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow. In this industry?
But yeah, sure. I mean, it needs to survive the change of personnel, absolutely. So there is a way of organizing Proact, and I guess mindset, the culture, where we are really focusing on the customer and helping the customers. We have countless, I think we all have countless of examples of where we've gone the extra mile. It doesn't really matter if you have if a customer is really in trouble, we fix it for them regardless of what's in the contract. And that doesn't happen with most organizations, especially not American ones, because they follow the lawyers, they follow the contracts, and we said, we fix it, then we sort out the paperwork and the money.
We'll deal with everything afterwards, right?
Yeah,
that's the issue, and then
that's build. I think that builds relationships, and we have countless of those examples when things are on fire. Maybe not literally on fire, but something is really wrong, and then we go the extra mile. And not that we never make mistakes, but we always go the extra mile, I think. And I think we are still trying to have an organization now, being a vice president, but I mean a big organization now, that we enable, we allow, we don't stop that mindset. So we don't put, some would say we put too much corporate red tape compared to the early days, but still we try to have that flexibility. Do what's best for the customer. We will sort out the financials, the paperwork afterwards. We try to keep that way of thinking and acting in Proact.
Yeah, I know. I've seen it as well. Certainly when it comes to, I mean, many of our customers are in a situation whereby there's always the vulnerability to ransomware. And we've seen that with some of our customers. And again, it's one of those, it's a situation whereby, right, fix it first, ask questions later. And that appears to be that's been in the methodology that I've seen in action on numerous occasions.
Sounds simple, but it's not.
No, it definitely isn't. You've got to throw a lot of resource at it. And essentially it's something that goes down to the individual employees as well, isn't it? Because some engineers got to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning or work until 5 o'clock in the morning to fix the issue. And, and people don't necessarily want to do that. They've got a 9-to-5 job. They don't necessarily want to be working till 5 o'clock in the morning. No. But generally speaking, the people want to do it because the fact that they want to be able to fix it, they want to help the customer. And that's an important
I mean, that of course, we haven't been perfect. We made a lot of mistakes. We're gonna have our 30th anniversary, in a few weeks,
and that's a mistake.
over the years. I also gonna have the other list. What are my thinking of the biggest mistakes we ever made in Proact? One of the ones I don't think is going to be on there, I might change my mind, is that we really missed VMware when it came along, because we didn't, back in those days when VMware started, we didn't really focus on the service at all. We added service, but we really didn't focus on it, and that's how the VMware business happened initially. So I think we absolutely missed the first phase of VMware.
Yeah.
Which came back and hurt us a little bit, quite a bit.
That's a fair point.
So it's been far from perfect, of course. But there you go.
There's a silver lining there. If you hadn't missed that, I wouldn't have been hired 8 years ago.
No, that's right. There you go. Exactly. We have to correct that mistake.
So how did you choose which areas or partnerships to focus on for growth, for future strategic things?
I mean that's a really good question, and I can give you the corporate answer, but I won't. not in this session. I mean, you try, you test. I think if you do it together with some customers you know really well, and you can hear their ideas or their problems, they might even point you in some directions on technologies. I mean, then you might have a good foundation. But also, you have to believe in certain things. You really have to be on top of your area and really understand the development, what's happening in technology left and right, to try to guide yourself and our customers into the future. So I think we spend quite a bit of time on being on top of the technical developments in our part of the IT market. So that might be one, and by doing that, you might be able to pick the right direction. But we, as I mentioned, we certainly made mistakes over the years. Secondly, is even if it's a good technology, can you make the partnership work? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, and you don't really know until you get started. But it is, do you and the partner share some fundamental beliefs on how to work together? Can we be honest? Can we make sure that we are trying to do the best for both of us in most cases? We could sometimes disagree, but I think somewhere, you start trust each other. You see the business growing, you don't get greedy, and you start to trust each other. Then I think you build on something. But it can certainly be, torn apart with new management or an acquisition, and things might go south pretty quickly. So you also have to adopt and change. And as I said, we changed all the technology partners over the first 3 years of Proact. Getting started, changing everything, because there were a lot of technical innovation happening and changes in the data and data management space. So we had to follow that. So there were some quick shifts and changes. So you have to be fast on your feet. But I mean, NetApp, did we think that NetApp 27 years later was going to be a massive part of Proact business? We didn't. We didn't think that they would stay on top of this, that they would keep innovating with their file system and their approach to storage, which was really software defined from the beginning, 27 years ago, way before anyone even mentioned it. But no, we didn't. We thought this would be commoditized pretty rapidly. So we said, a few years, and then we thought network storage is going to be commoditized. It's going to be hard to make money. We need to move on. So we did not see a 27-year, more or less continuous growth, really. So that's the honest truth. You say, NetApp and this is going to be the future. No, you would never know that. So you need to adopt and react to changes. And another one, we went into object storage. Probably 10 years before S3 existed.
Oh, is this?
We did some good business, but it wasn't. I mean, the customers, the application landscape wasn't ready for that. But you need to have gateways from file system into object. So there were no native S3 applications back in the day. So it's 10 years before. This is what is it? Almost 20 years ago. So 10 years before S3 existed and starting to put a standard in place, or the de facto standard in place.
Was this Hitachi or EMC?
Mess for some customers and us, but there you go. We tried.
Yeah. What was it? It wasn't even called object storage back then, was it? It was called something else. But I know EMC used to do something called Atmos. Hitachi did something called HCP, Hitachi Content Platform. But they were all early iterations of what object storage would become.
There was even one. There was an EMC platform they acquired from a Belgian company, because I actually met a Belgian called Paul Carpentier. He actually invented object storage, and he made the first version, which then became EMC. Was it Centera or something like that?
Oh, maybe. Maybe.
So it really is a Belgian invention from the beginning, 25 years back. So that was acquired by EMC, and they started packaging that as a compliance storage.
Yes,
way back.
That kind of ties back to the whole hype cycle of things, right? Because you get these things that get launched and are available, and look at this is absolutely fabulous and going to solve everything. And then it doesn't, because
reality
the rest of the ecosystem doesn't know how to use that new technology. And once it's kind of the hype fades and you kind of start to actually looking at usage patterns for it, the next iteration of it is probably what's going to take off, because the rest of the ecosystem has matured to the idea of doing something in a new way.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So being the first to do something might not always be the best case for longevity, but it might be a way to get your name out there, but it doesn't pay the bills at the end of the day. And being able to kind of ride those waves and see how that landscape evolves is also a big part of keeping a company like Proact going for 30 years.
And being a little bit cool, being on top of technology and what's happening in the market, but how should I express it? Don't get carried away. Don't bet everything on the latest and greatest, whatever that is. In the infrastructure world, it was, there are kind of two iterations. 10-ish years ago, we started seeing spinning disk going away to flash. Our big vendors, not the least NetApp, was missing the train. And there were a lot of startups coming up at that. So the whole organization was screaming. I think I had a request for, I was the CTO for the Proact group back then. I've been that on and off for decades. And they said, we want to sign these 7 or 9 new startups for Flash. And we went like, what? Because every technology partnership, you need commitment, you need to take it to market, you need to train your techies. So there it's a lot of work and costs associated with it. So I said, let's stay a little bit cool and really listening to our existing storage partners. What are they actually doing? And I think we added one that gave us a little bit of business, but they disappeared or they were acquired. And of course, our existing storage partners, including NetApp, got their act together. And off we went. So we stayed a little bit cool. Hyper-converged is another one. So it's going to replace storage. It's going to replace servers. It's going to take over the world.
Nope.
No, it didn't.
No.
It's a piece of it, but it didn't fulfill that promise, of course. So staying a little bit cool, staying on top. But I think one experience that we have, we really have to be on top of the new things, because if we are not on top of it, if we don't understand how it works, if we don't understand the plus and minuses of something new, we are not trustworthy as advisor to our customers. And so we started. The biggest benefit of us spending time with hyperconverged was that we can explain to a customer when to use it and where to use it and when not to use it. Where does it actually make sense? We can with this partner, because for customers, with storage and data management, it's just a small piece of what they are doing. They go like, what's the latest? What's the greatest? And off they go. So they I think they will, if we play our role well, we are on top of the new things. Not necessarily saying it's going to be a massive seller, but be on top of it. And so we can explain it to ourselves, and then we can, of course, explain it to customers, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I have had numerous discussions with customers around that, being a VMware kind of consultant for years, around the hyperconverged versus traditional storage, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And there, as with everything else in life, there is no one size fits all.
Yep.
Everything, well, I've been a consultant long enough to, the answer is, of course, it depends, but it is.
Cheating.
You don't want to use VMware vSAN to store your files. That's a stupid and expensive way of doing that.
Yeah.
It might be a good fit to host your VMs, but not your unstructured file data, right?
Or virtual desktops.
Everything is what it is, and you have to figure out the use cases for each and everything.
Yeah.
And that's where the understanding comes in, right? You need to understand the usage patterns to actually be able to recommend what you should use.
Yep.
And that's why they need a partner, someone like Proact.
Yeah, because we've got the knowledge to advise.
I think right now, what is, in my view at least, extremely overhyped right now. Well, it is, I'll say, regenerative AI, isn't it? And I go like, I install, and I have it, install Copilot, you're going to be so much more effective, and your business is going to be so much more innovative. You're going to take market share and make much more money for yourself and your shareholders. And I go like,
I'm going to say, actually, Per couldn't make the meeting today, so this is a generative AI deep fake that I created for this meeting.
Yeah, I'm saying the same things, So that's just another area where you say, okay, it was like a few years back. You say, I'm going to Office 365. I'm going to the public clouds. I'm going to be more innovative. Well, you're probably going to be more effective and probably make sense. But saying, you're going to be using the same Office 365 as the rest of the world, you're using the same Copilot and ChatGPT as the rest of the world with generic data on it, it's not gonna make you innovative. It might make you more efficient. The first numbers say the managers are really on. I think 99% of all managers love their AI implementations, which is usually Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever. And 79% of the users, this came during the summer, say they become less productive using regenerative AI. And I think I know why. Like we all do. You get a new tool, and no training, no guidance. You just start, trying it, and some of the Copilot stuff is pretty good. Like, you can summarize teams, and then, of course, try to use Copilot as your coach for doing a PowerPoint presentation, at least for me, is completely, utterly waste of time. But there could also be that I don't understand because I haven't been educated or I haven't been guided how to use it. So we just throw another tool and say, now we're doing AI. It's like, and the board and the owners are happy. Well, to really be super efficient or do something unique and being innovative, I think it will take a bit more hard work to make that happen. So that's another hype, and then you get disappointed, and then we all start to understand what it is, what is not, and where to use it. So the traditional, Gartner hype cycle, I think, is happening with AI at the moment. So
I heard a saying where somebody said, if everything is AI, then nothing is AI, because it's getting implemented everywhere. So everybody is getting more effective and more efficient. And so you don't have anything to stand out anymore. So it's really more about understanding your business, understanding your processes, and then making use of the tools that really help you making the best out of that, and not just focusing on solution XYZ that will solve all the problems. Basically, as with all the topics of the cycle. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm not saying don't use Copilot or ChatGPT, but don't fool yourself saying it's going to be massive, innovation or efficiency gain. I don't think so. In there, of course, if you start combining it with your own data and making more complex, more time-consuming, another hard IT project, there might be some cool stuff.
I just had a thought, and that's if I could create a deepfake version of myself to do meetings, I would probably be more effective.
Yeah.
If I didn't have to go to all the meetings. So
what
there's
you
an
said
idea.
in those meetings.
Like recording this, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Do my own podcast with my deep fake. That's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
And Tony, we've been working together for almost 5 years, so I think you heard all of this before. So you could just do re-recording and then you mix it up and
Yeah, I mean, we ingested it all into an AI. There you go. And
Yeah,
we'll just get it to
and
sort of.
we know how when it gets going, it's going to be something like that. So it's going to be fine. So no, fair enough, But being a vice president, I'm Mr. Moon. I would love that one because there are a lot of meetings. Some are enjoyable, less so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's finish off on one thing because we've been going for about 25 minutes. So let's finish off on something quite interesting. So let's go around the table. But what do you think, Per, over the last 30 years, what do you think the best innovation is that IT has offered over that period of time that's changed business the most?
Ooh.
I know.
That's a really good one, and I didn't give any thought before. If I think wider, as much as this kind of partly pains me, I think the public cloud and making IT available in a, let's say, more consumer friendly, more easy to use way, so you can actually start using IT for testing, experimenting, putting it behind ideas instead of waiting for the IT department. And that's not saying that the hyperscalers are going to be the only solution. It's absolutely not. But I think, and that of course, as taught all of us, that's how you need to look at IT. It is something that is easy to use at least. More flexible, consumable. You can use it whenever you need. I think that could drive the use of IT and innovation and coming up with new ideas. And especially if the smaller you are, and if you're a startup, the more getting this power to you. I think that is probably one of the greatest innovations, if I think about it. You guys could probably come up with something far more clever than that, but that will probably be on top of my list, So the whole cloudification of IT, I guess.
What do you think, Christian Lehrer?
Oh, that's a hard one.
I know. Come on, it's like a challenge for a. It's
Can I just
nearly
say plus
lunchtime.
one? Is that okay? Or
plus, you're adding one to the. No, you can't add one to the cloud.
You can agree or you can disagree with me. That's fine.
No, yeah, that's a good one. I think the internet really just being before that, like the way of communication that is possible now. Even I remember not being able to do that in the past, and that was a completely different world. Different world. And I think, that I would talk the internet. I would choose the internet itself.
I remember playing with a 24K modem. It's the way forward, wasn't it? Sort of like a dial-up connection. What about you, Christian?
56.
Yeah, 56.
I'm going to take Per's suggestion and take it one step back, because the basis for the entire public cloud and everything in it is basically hypervisors on x86 processors. So the ability to virtualize your workloads and split up physical computers into several small virtual instances and make them movable and transferable and dynamic has pretty much formed the basis and foundation for everything we're seeing today, including private cloud, public cloud, everything. So that's kind of the technology that also stems from the mainframe, right? Basically, the idea of carving up a bigger computer into smaller ones is a mainframe idea. So but doing that with commodity x86 hardware is what's enabled everything we've seen since, pretty much.
And you've kind of all stole the ideas that I had written down here, which is very disappointing because I only had three, and you've all chosen one.
Maybe one more.
Well, I was going to say that is something, isn't it? But also I was going to say, I suppose really it's got to be the miniaturization of computer technology as well. Because if you look at the amount of processing power in something like this, is insane by comparison to what it used to be. So I think I might go with chip design, I suppose, on that respect. In the fact that we've managed to take processors and make them so small and so efficient and so powerful that, what was it? We went to the moon with essentially the same amount of processing power as a 1990s washing machine, something on those lines. So it's that sort of thing. I think maybe processing is probably the biggest change.
And thankfully we got these powerful ones that we can use to share cat pictures on.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, what would we do?
And now we can use the cloud to generate new cat pictures.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So
more cat pictures.
Fantastic. There is a fantastic book a couple of years ago called The Chip War, which I can recommend. The whole history of both technology, but also, I guess, economics and politics when it comes to chip manufacturing. I think a lot to the credit to the UK, because a lot of the super efficient processor power is coming out of the ARM architecture. That is what we are seeing in most very efficient processes, which I think is important for many reasons. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
but of course, my public cloud, developers. I mean, this is of course what's in the hand of most human beings. And apart from all the shit they are spreading, there is a lot of good stuff in there as well. So I think so.
Yeah, but we got to remember that everything that's negative about it isn't technology. That's human behavior.
Yeah.
So we're kind of the weak link there, not the technology. So.
No.
I agree with that. Yep, and a lot of very clever people created it. So yeah. I'd just like to say thanks so much, Per, for taking the time to join in with us. I think we have you for another one with regard to NetApp, which should be really quite interesting. So, but thank you for your time today. That's been really interesting.